Hi, this is Edward Troxel. In today's tutorial we're going to learn how to add a transition to an event on the timeline. Just as we can control the fade ins and the fade outs as we discussed in the last tutorial, we can add a transition to the in or we can add a transition to the out. So let's look and see how we can add the transitions as needed. Let's go back and review the code that we had in our last tutorial. First of all, we got the track that we were going to look at, then we got the event we were going to look at. In the effects, we had to change this to a video event. We really don't need to do that for the transitions. I just left that line of code in there. Then we went in and changed the fade in length and the fade out length to be the amount of dissolve that we wanted coming in and coming out. Now we're going to add some extra code so that we can add an actual transition to those fade ins and fade outs. So let's try to add a couple of different transitions. If you remember, we have the text file where we saved all of the different transition and effects and generated media information. One of the ones we're going to use here today is the spiral. I set that for the transition out function, and then we have the transition in. So if we come back up, we'll find the clock wipe up here so we can get the actual unique ID from this file. So I've set a transition in unique ID to be the clock wipe, and then I set a transition out unique ID to be the spiral. Next line here, I'm getting the list of transitions that are available in Vegas. Then from that list of transition, I'm searching for the transition in, which I'm setting to a trans in variable, which is a plugin node type. Then we have a plugin node for transition out, and I'm getting that from the trans, finding by the unique ID, the transition out unique ID. Next, I have to get the actual effect. So our effect for the in is going to be new effect from trans in, which we specified up here, and then our effect out is going to be our new effect from our trans out. Now we just need to set the transition. So we go back to event.fadeIn and .transition equals the effect in that we just found, and then event.fadeout.transition equals effect out. So let's see how that code will work. So now if we look at our event on the timeline, you'll see at the beginning we do have a clock wipe, and at the end we have a spiral. So if we go through our clip here, we will see that it does wipe onto the screen, and then back here at the end we will see that a black box spirals in to cover us up. Now let's go in and modify our code a little bit further. Well, let's just delete everything that we've done here, and let's create two more little lines of code. Here I want to create a routine called set transition. What I'm going to pass to it is either the fade in or the fade out. I want to pass the unique ID of the transition I want, and I'm going to also pass it the length of the transition. So this way I can do all of that in just these two lines of code, but let's see what the set transition code looks like. For set transition, I'm passing it the fade in or fade out. That is a fade, which I'm just simply going to call fade. Then I'm passing it the unique ID, which is a string, and then I'm passing it the length, which is a time code. So the first thing I need to do is get my list of transitions, the same as I did before, from myvegas.transitions. Then I'm going to get the plugin node for the transition I'm looking for, and I'm going to search the list of transitions with getChild by unique ID and use the unique ID that we were passed up here. Next, I'm going to get the transition effect. It's going to be the new effect from my trans. And then I need to do two things to the fade. First of all, I'm going to take the fade and set the dot length to the length of the timecode that was sent in, and I'm going to change the transition to the T effect that we just found here. So now let's try it with just these two lines of code up here. And we got the exact same thing. If we go backwards on the timeline, you will see that the light box spirals out instead of in since I'm going backwards. And if we come up here, we go backwards on the clock wipe, notice it wipes out since I'm going backwards. If I turn around and go forward, we can see it wipes in. Going forward, the spiral will come in and cover up this image. So as you can see, the subroutines certainly make it a whole lot easier to add effects and transitions, because then we have just one little routine we can call instead of having to put all of the code in there all the time. In this particular case, adding the transition was really a fairly simple task. We just had to know whether we wanted to add it to the fade in or the fade out. We needed to know the length of the fade, and we needed to know the transition we were going to use, and then it was easy to add that transition to the fade in or fade out. Please sign up at www.jettv.com and subscribe on YouTube to get further notifications on when new videos are presented.